Hi everyone, this is Richard. In this video we are going to go over elements. So we talked about elements before. They are basically these things inside of the tags themselves, right? So on our web page we have all of these elements that build up the web page, and all of these elements are types of nodes, right? So the element that I think we're going to use mostly on the web page. So in the body, these are more of the graphical elements, things that we will actually see on the page. Let's just say the most common one of the most common ones is like the input element. Okay, so it is graphical, so we should be able to see it right inside here. And so you'll probably recognize, everybody can recognize on any web page, you have some type of an empty box that you can fill in. Okay, so we have that. But when you think about it, there are other characteristics because it is graphical, right? It's actually a graphics. So you could have a more of a bigger box, you could have a darker box, you could have a value that you actually put inside of here, right? You have a type of element as well, and you have to be able to determine, wait a minute, I have this element, this element, this element, this element, auto indent. I have all of these elements inside here. Forgot to save it. That's annoying, isn't it? I have all of these elements. Which one am I? This one has 1, this one has 2, this one has D, and this one has L. Which one am I referring to? You have to be able to identify it. So in here, you can actually do a number of options, have a number of options. This is almost like a class, and these are instances, instance variables that you give it values. Okay, so there's one is type, and let's make it a number. Okay, not text, but a number. Um, let's say you can give it a value, okay, an initial value. Let's say it's 54, and you can give it an ID. So in other words, how do you distinguish this input from this one from this one? You could give it an identification, and every identification has to be unique. This one, okay? And everyone has to be unique, otherwise you won't really be able to access it very well and get that information from there. So if you save it and you look at it again, it looks like 54, and this is a number, so it goes down and up itself when you click on it. Okay, so that's the most fundamental. So the thing to keep in mind is that we have a bunch of these types of elements. I'm just going to say input for one of them. There's hundreds more. There's anything from a divisor to a line to a paragraph, and any of them you can give them. You can't give them all values, but you can give almost all of them an ID. Some of them you can give a type. Specifically for inputs, what we will have is we could give it a name equals choice. Let's just say that. And you could give it a class equals numbers. Okay. What an ID says is that this individual element right here, not the other ones, this particular one is something I need to identify in and of itself. Okay? It's unique, right? A name, basically, the classical example of using a name is like for like radio buttons. You know those radio buttons where you either click here, it's like a circular button, you click here, or here, or here. Let me see if I can Google this one. So either this or this. You can't click both of them. So both of them have the same characteristics that of being clickable, right? But you can only choose one. So name would go under the same that you would probably call this gender. So each may have an individual ID, but they'll probably have a common name to them. Okay. ID is kind of like somebody's social security number. Name is kind of like somebody's last name. Many people have that, but only one person has your social security number, at least in the United States. Class typically refers to CSS. So for example, if I want this all inputs that have this class numbers, I want them to look green or something like that. So you can have as many elements with the class numbers, but they'll all be green if you make them green under the CSS. Okay? And then there's, of course, the tag name, which is this is the input, this is the body, and you'll have other ones like div, and then there's like um, line, and there's like paragraph. So you'll have all sorts of other types of elements, and that is the tag name, PLIDIV. Okay? Now, so this is the general, I hope this was clear, this complete overview of elements themselves. Now, this is what I'm trying to teach you is basically the syntax of the language. So I always say, like in English, the subject goes first, then the verb, and then the object. So that's what I'm trying to say. Each element has certain characteristics, and it's the characteristic equal quotation marks, space, and you keep going on, and you can add as many or as little as you want. If you don't add anything, it'll just be a default, but you won't really have much there to work with. Okay. The problem with this is that HTML is a language. It's a markup language. So in other words, there's a lot of vocabulary that you'll want to learn. So as I kind of mentioned before, if I can send you over to w3schools.com, if I could send you there and actually review, you can ignore the JavaScript part. We'll go over that only through Dart. But if you could just learn the vocabulary, just try to read it bit by bit. You don't have to memorize it. Just be familiar with the ideas themselves. And we'll go over more of this in the future, but to a very limited degree, we'll be using all of these, just some of these here and there. And so if you could do that, and if you want, go through CSS, because I won't be going through CSS very much. Not a strength of mine, not proud of it. That's just the way it is, though. Okay. So if you can actually read that, that'll be more helpful for you. Hopefully, you'll be able to advance farther than I will in that respect. Okay. Thank you.